Our two-time Super Bowl champ Brian B-Mac McFadden here. We're going to discuss your top 5 wide receiver duos in the league right now. We're going to go 5 all the way to 1. But B-Mac, before we get into it, give us the criteria and what that took to get to this list, because there are some rules here.
Yeah, the criteria for my list, and this is my list, okay? So cool down, don't be alarmed, it's my list. But the criteria: individual talent, right? You talk about a duo of wide receivers. Do you have a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 1B, right? That's something that I look forward to. Outside of the individual talents, Jacqueline, who is throwing those wide receivers the passes? Because that plays a significant part in the overall success from the duo of wide receivers. So those are the things that I look for in terms of putting this top 5 ranking together. And I do believe I have the best top 5 duo ranking out right now to mankind.
That is quite, that is quite the hype there. So let's get to it, B-Mac. And we're starting with number 5. Where you have to get used to saying Puka Nacua and Davante Adams being on the same team, but they're your number 5 wide receiver duo on this list.
Yes, I had to go out west for my 5th team with the Rams, to your point. Puka Nacua, the only thing that slowed him down a year ago was injuries. Jacqueline, he only played in 10 or 11 ball games, right? But he almost had 1,000 yards on the year. So one would think with a clean bill of health, along with Matthew Stafford back under the saddle, he is going to do numbers. But then you look at what they added with Davante Adams. Yes, Davante is 32 years old, but he's aged like fine wine. The last 5 seasons, at least 1,000 yards receiving. And what he did a year ago was amazing. When you look at the scenarios that he was involved in, Raiders wasn't ideal, but found a way to be successful when he was on the football field. He moved to New York. Of course, the environment wasn't the best either, but yet and still, he was able to give you over 1,000 yards on the season, playing for 2 different organizations. So when you look at his skill set, his ability to create separation, the play caller in Sean McVay, and the quarterback, these 2 guys, clearly, they're a top 5 wide receiver tandem as we get ready for 2025 in the National Football League.
All right, so we go from out west to the Midwest for number 4. We're going to the Motor City with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. What makes this duo so dangerous in your eyes, B-Mac?
Well, let's look back in 2024 what they did, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown had over 1,200 yards receiving. He ranked 5th in the National Football League. You look at Jameson Williams, right? Over 1,000 yards. He really found his niche in this offense. I think these 2 guys will continue to exceed the expectations. They had outstanding years in between the numbers, not to mention what they did in the red zone as well, getting big-time touchdowns. I understand they lost their play caller in Ben Johnson, but Jared Goff is still there. The passing relationship is very, very important for these 2 guys making my top 5, because the relationship that they have with their quarterback in Jared Goff, I think once again will show up. And when you play against the Detroit Lions, I understand Ben Johnson is no longer there, but the personnel is still in play. You can't devote all of your attention to the aerial attack. When you talk about having Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, they have more balance than any other team in the National Football League, and that will pave the way for another successful season for these 2 wide receivers. So I have the Detroit Lions tandem and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams cracking my top 5 at number 4 based on what they did in 2024 and the expectations again this upcoming season.
Okay, so 5 and 4 I feel like are no-brainers, and this is your list, B-Mac. It is your list. And number 3, we're going to go to we're going to go to Miami. Maybe a little bit of a head scratcher here with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, being above Detroit. But why do they come in at number 3? And we're thinking about Tua, who is their quarterback, but why are these guys number 3 on the list?
Because they are still the 2 fastest wide receivers in the National Football League. Speed is something you cannot coach, you cannot prepare for. You will be in a position where you're just basically chasing. And I understand we saw a bad year collectively from everyone that had a Miami Dolphins uniform on a year ago. But Jacqueline, it's not like we haven't seen these 3 guys, when you talk about Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, create magic down in South Beach. They didn't go to Wet Willie's and have a pina colada. No, their magic was being created there in Hard Rock Stadium. So we saw an outlier of a year ago. You better believe these 3 individuals will be highly motivated once again to make big-time splash plays from start to the end. And I talked about the speed. That's something you cannot prepare for. They have the two most feared wide receivers, in my opinion, in the National Football League. So I believe this tandem of wide receivers along with their quarterback will get back in the lab and start cooking up some nice dishes to serve every given Sunday, Thursday, and Monday.
We know they weren't having pina coladas during the season, but the off-season, particular quarterback on a boat having some beverages. I won't get into it, but we did see that.
Off-season. Jacqueline, it's okay to have a pina colada here or, a daiquiri here in the off-season. By the time it's ready to get on the grass, to a tongue of our Lord, we're ready to go. You better believe it.
Okay, all right, let's go to number 2, and we're going to the Super Bowl champs because we know there in Philly, the run game with Saquon is 10 out of 10, but the wide receiver duo is top-notch as well. Be back.
No question. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they have 2 wide receiver ones on their team, in my opinion. And the thing about what we saw from this tandem, they coexist nicely together in the offense. Now, they have a really, really good running game led by Saquon Barkley. But whenever Jalen Hurts is looking to make plays in the air, he's looking for number 11 or number 6. And those guys oftentimes win their one-on-one matchups. We saw what they did in their Super Bowl. We saw what they did throughout the entire season. And get this, A.J. Brown had over 1,000 yards, but he wasn't healthy the entire year. He missed significant time, but still gave you the production. He's one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League that no one really talks about because he doesn't do his business, go about his business in a flashy way. He's a hard worker, and I love what he brings to the table in terms of the physical nature that he provides, and then you look at the element of speed and quickness that Devontae Smith provides as well. They're number 2 on my list when you look at the top 5 wide receiver duos in the National Football League as we get ready, Jacqueline, for 2025.
All right, and we have finally arrived at number 1 on your list. And if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you're spending all of this money, you better be number 1 on BMAC's list here. And of course, that goes to the Bengals with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Jamar, both of these guys are going to be there for 4 years. Jamar now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, and then T getting 4 years, $115 million. Number 1, clearly, but is that all worth that much money, BMAC? I feel like you're going to say yes, because they're number 1 on this list.
Yeah, for Cincinnati, yes. Yes, because when you franchise tag T. Higgins, you basically told all of us you're trying to retain his services. When Joe Burrow made it importance in getting both these guys signed was something that he wanted to see. You had to find a way to get the job done, and kudos for Cincinnati because I did not think they could sign 2 extensions in the same year. They did so in the same night. So kudos to those individuals for getting paid in Cincinnati, finding a way to get it done. Now, in terms of what they do on the football, 8 alphas, both. They're in beast mode week in and week out. Jamar Chase, Triple Crown winner, led the NFL in receiving yards, receptions, and receiving touchdowns. And T. Higgins, the only thing that slowed T. Higgins down, Jacqueline, was the injuries that he was dealing with in 2023, but he still had a very, very successful season. So you look at the individual skill sets that they each provide, along with the quarterback who is throwing them the football, Joe Cool Burrow. Right? You look at the chemistry they have already in place as well, the passing relationship has really been on high alert in terms of what you see when you play against them. Yes, they're the best duo of wide receivers as we get ready for this 2025 NFL season, easily in my opinion, not to mention they're overly happy as well. So, the motivation will be there, and they will go into this season with the mindset of trying to show everyone the dollar they just received.
BMAC,
A major concern has recently emerged among Minnesota Vikings fans about the possibility of 41-year-old quarterback Aaron Rodgers joining the team. After a disastrous stint with the Jets, speculation about his future continues. Let's analyze why, despite the logic of rejecting him, the Vikings haven't completely ruled out this option. What would this decision mean for the team, and what risks might the decision-makers be considering? Before diving into the full analysis of Rodgers, there's a related topic we need to consider: the Vikings' salary cap flexibility. Over the past few seasons, the team has worked on a quarterback succession plan that aligns with their efforts to improve their financial position. This has allowed them to succeed in competitive rebuilding, where they managed to win over 13 games in 2 of their first 3 seasons under head coach Kevin O'Connell. However, could this success lead the Vikings to take a big risk, like signing Rodgers, instead of sticking to their long-term plan? The Vikings' success under O'Connell and general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has been remarkable, especially in the competitive rebuilding phase, where the team won more than 13 games in 2 of their first 3 seasons. This success has generated immense confidence among the fans, who now wonder if the Vikings are really willing to risk all this progress. The option of Rodgers may seem tempting to some, but with a well-established succession plan, would it be smart to invest in a 41-year-old quarterback whose time with the Jets was a failure? Despite everything, the Rodgers option is still on the table, leaving open the possibility that the Vikings are waiting for a bargain in the market. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think the Vikings should take a risk and sign Aaron Rodgers, or should the team stay true to their quarterback succession plan and look for long-term alternatives? Is Rodgers a viable option for a team that's building for the future? Leave your comments and share your perspective on what would be best for Minnesota. Now, let's get to the most striking part of this topic. The question still lingers. Why haven't the Vikings closed the door on Aaron Rodgers, despite the clear signs that he's not the best option for the team's future? Let's dive into what's really going on and why this situation remains relevant today. The Vikings haven't ruled out Aaron Rodgers, despite the uncertainty it generates among the fans. While many think it's obvious the team should move away from him, the organization hasn't closed the door on a potential signing. This approach, while surprising to some, reflects the Vikings' strategy of keeping all options open. The team's succession plan is still underway, but the presence of a quarterback with Rodgers' caliber could be tempting, especially if the quarterback market shrinks and the need for a leader on the field becomes more urgent. If the Vikings ultimately decide to sign Aaron Rodgers, this could have profound implications for the team's dynamic. On one hand, a quarterback of his caliber could elevate the team in the short term, giving them a real shot at competing for a Super Bowl. However, internal conflicts could arise, especially with the succession plan already in place and a future quarterback like J.J. McCarthy on the horizon. This could alter the course that the Vikings have worked so hard to build. What do you think? Should the Vikings take a risk and bring in Aaron Rodgers, or should the team stick with their long-term plan with a younger quarterback? Do you think Rodgers' arrival could really put the team in a better position to win the Super Bowl in 2025? Leave your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And that concludes our analysis of the Vikings and Aaron Rodgers situation. Stay tuned for more updates on this topic and other NFL news. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment with your thoughts. See you in the next video.